Okay, so for all of our Patreon followers, this is the business hour that I do for I'm in a live class right now. There are several attendees in here. This is the class that we do prior to starting the didactic portion for Botox and filler in our basic class. This part is important because if you are thinking about getting into aesthetics or are in aesthetics and you hear something I say and you're not doing it, you're probably not because I know everything, you're probably just not fully compliant. So you should probably consider something that I'm talking about. This is a lot about compliance, but it's a lot about also how to set up your business because what we're doing here, and I hone in on this, is starting your own business. Medical professionals, I don't care if you're a nurse practitioner, a PA, a doctor, we're kind of bad at it. I don't want to offend anybody's honor, but the fact of the matter is we are not taught that in nursing school, in PA school, in medical school. It is not a focus on business. Most of us don't even know how to do our taxes, let alone run a business. So we decided to add this part in because, again, what the hell are we doing? We're starting a whole business. I always give the example that as a nurse or even as a physician or a PA or whatever, you walk into a hospital, you're giving your clients every single day, you're giving exactly who you're going to take care of for the day. You have this beautiful supply room that has everything you could possibly need, hopefully, if you're not chasing down like an IV pole. But you have what you need. Let's say you're putting in a catheter or something. You walk into the supply room, you grab the catheter kit, probably costs like somewhere around $2,000 to the hospital. You don't think twice about it. You grab one, maybe two if you're one of those nurses, but you grab one. You go back to the room and whoop, touched your vagina. Let me go get another one. No big deal. That's another $2,000. That's not what you're getting into now. You drop that bottle of Botox and you're going to feel like you're going to want to die. It's tough. So it's just a different mentality, and it takes time for the, we check that. It's fine. I'd rather literally start over without, I won't say all that again.
I thought like because you were pressing it,
It's okay. Is it still recording? Is it showing up? Okay, just start it over. We're back. Woo! Okay, so this is a whole different mindset, and that's super important. And you can do everything that I'm about to say. Most of the time I get done with this, and I have a few people like lose their minds. Marianne's a good one. I always give her as an example. She was like, called me like 6 weeks after she took our class and was just, she had a breakdown. One of our injectors, because she had just been trying to do all the things I'm telling you guys about now, which again, when you're going into a med spa, it doesn't overly apply, but it does because some of this is really relevant. And she never got started injecting. And she just couldn't, and that's not what I want to happen. It's more about, these are all the things you can do to protect yourself and to set your business up so that if you look up in 18 months like we did and you're standing here, you had set the foundation for success. So that's really the point of this whole thing. My background, my whole career was with HCA. I was a phlebotomist before I was even in nursing school, and then went, when I was getting my bachelor's, and then before I started nursing school, and then went to tech and all that kind of stuff, all with HCA. I'm a big fan. People think what they want about that, but big fan. I got my first role in leadership as the director of a couple critical cares when I was just 26, and I attribute a lot of that to HCA and a CNO who took a chance on me, but a lot of why I'm here is because of them. Along the way, I got an MBA. I had Dr. Valdivia, who I love to death, who's a neurologist at Centennial, tell me, you want to stand out? When I was traveling around, then get an MBA, be a nurse with an MBA. That'll be different. And I was like, all right, that's a good idea. So I got that, and then got my master's in nursing, and then got a doctorate. I'm just a nurse, so I have a DNP, but it's not a nursing practice degree like an APRN or a physician or a PA. Mine is in leadership, my doctorate is in leadership, and then, but I'm just an RN. So that's really important when we talk about this stuff because it's not offensive to be just an RN, but from a compliance perspective, it matters. You're either just an RN or you're a PA or you're an APRN or whatever the case is. So that really makes a difference. So we're going to ignore the business PowerPoint. I'm just going to talk out loud right now. Oh, there it's back. Okay. Sorry about that. I hate this. I hate that. It's so frustrating. So sorry about that for everybody on Patreon. We do apologize. I am going to keep going because, this is what it is. Okay. So I've already discussed with everybody in the room where they are in their business today. Some people are going into a med spa position. Is there a med spa already? Adding on aesthetics. Okay, perfect. So this really does kind of apply. Even though they should be handling a lot of this stuff, it does apply. Some people are going to be mobile, probably doing their own thing, and then we have some that are adding on. We have physician, PA, nurse practitioner, nurse, everybody in the room, which is fantastic. So I've already talked to them about what they may or may not know about starting their business, and if they have their startup needs figured out. I think it's so important to talk about this because a lot of people do just think, oh, they see a class, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go do that. That's a great idea. I'm a nurse, or I'm a PA, or I'm whatever. I'm going to go do that. And that, unfortunately, is not the case. It also matters, are you going to be mobile? Are you going to rent a room? Are you going to be open a med spa? Are you going to be in a spa? And do you know your city, county, and state taxes? Are you guys all in Davidson County? No. No. Davidson. What county? Oh, bravo. I know that one well. I'm not worried about you. I love you. Or you.
Arizona.
You're in Arizona. In what county?
We're from Chester County.
Okay. I don't know Chester County. But the only county, the good news is the only county in Tennessee, and I'm going to try to stay too much off Tennessee from a Patreon perspective, but the only county in Tennessee that has med spa tax is yours. So is Knox County. So it is really important to know that type of stuff. Now, Tennessee is super graceful, and a lot of states are with small businesses because they want you to succeed. It's good for our economy. So you have grace. So I don't want everything that right away is like, shoot, how do I go figure out what that tax is? I don't want people to freak out with all the stuff I'm about to say because you have time. You're also probably going to start your business right at the end of the year, which means you're going to have to file taxes if you do an LLC. You could also just start your LLC on January 1. And then you have to worry about this over a year from now. Doesn't mean you can't start injecting in December. You just kind of mix the business. We'll talk about why that's a liability or a risk from a malpractice perspective, but it's like this big, so I actually highly recommend it. If you're at the end of the year, it's just that the differences in business with your LLC obviously make it a difference. You can start your calendar budget year December 1 or whatever the case is, or whatever today is, the 8th, if you want. But that's just really hard to keep up with, so just do the end of the calendar year and start it in January. It just makes more sense. I think this is happening, Adrian, because your computer is not staying on. And when I touch it, it wakes up and gets very excited, which is glorious. Okay, so I break this conversation into 3 different, will you change the slide? 3 different, there it goes. 3 different phases. Most of what I'm going to talk about is what you need to do before you take your first client. That's the meat of the class and is the most important part. And the second phase is kind of what me and Mary did specifically in our business and starting our, how we did what we did, basically. And I'll give a little brief history of Smiley because I think that's important. We are an anomaly, and I think that's important for everybody to know. It's not because I'm special. It's because we had, first off, we're 2 identical twins with the last name Smiley, who started an aesthetics business. I mean, #winning. Like, we were ahead of the game right then and there. 2 people who are beyond identical, who think the same. We are the best of friends. Like, it's 2 heads in 1 business. So no one here really has that advantage, so it's okay. But I still like to tell what we did and exactly what we did because I think it's important, and I think it was we handled it the right way. My background in Smiley and with Mary being the clinical lead, Mary's in anesthesia, as a CRNA, and then I had this, went into HCA corporate, had a very leadership track. My last role with them was the director of nursing for our big GPO, which services like 1,800 hospitals, Ascension, all of them. And that meant everything from an alcohol swab to a robot came through me, and we made big deals based on leveraging size. Well, now at Smiley, I make big deals leveraging size. And then prior to that, I was basically a joint commission surveyor for HCA. I was on our internal survey team, and I went and surveyed fireproofing in the ceiling down to, are you doing your restraints right? That experience is important because I had that, and then you got Mary, who's in aesthetics for 4 years, and then we added on our attorney. I mean, you really can't beat that. That's not what a lot of y'all are going to do. So I say that it's not an arrogance thing. It's really just to take a breath. And you're not going to do what we did in 3 months unless you have a business partner and you have an attorney. It's probably going to take some time. So then that leads into growing. And everything we talk about in the first part of this is all about where you want to be, where you want to grow to. If you don't have aspirations to grow into something, do this full time, that's perfectly fine. It's offensive in the aesthetic community to be a side hustle. It is not looked upon nicely to say that, but it just is what it is. It's just business. It's either a side hustle, you want to make a few $100s a month, which is like so easy to do, or you want to grow and be into a med spa. There's a whole range of things that you can do there. Okay, so when we talk about what we need to do before our first client, The money part of this, I'm going to go through each one of these, but the money part of this is going to be on the next slide. So I'm going to breeze over it briefly, and that's talking about LLCs and that type of stuff. So obviously you have your medical director. If you're in the state of Tennessee, we are not full practice for anybody except a doctor. So the physician, you have to have a physician in the state. Even as a PA, someone has to completely oversee you. PAs probably have, by example, or nurse practitioners in our state, I don't even know. You guys can do, of course, your own medical. You have the practice. It's a collaborative state is what we call it. There's restricted practice, collaborative practice, and full practice states. Arizona, by example, is a full practice state. Cami doesn't need a physician at all to do really anything, which is lovely. There's 22 of those, I think, now, and that number is growing, which is great. It's not an offensive thing against a physician. It's more that there are plenty of things that can be done at the nurse practitioner scope that physician doesn't need to do. It'd probably be good for the industry, quite frankly, because it would release them from doing things like signing off on a gosh darn heartburn pill. There's positive there's and negative there to different things with that. But you do need to know. But since we're in Tennessee, we're going to focus on Tennessee a lot, which makes this easy. But if you're in a different state, you need to know what level you're at. If you're a nurse, you always have to have a nurse practitioner and a good faith exam every single time before you touch the client. And then if you're a nurse practitioner, are you in a state, and you will know this, or a CRNA or a PA, what is your level of collaboration you have to have, or are you full practice? Okay, so do you have your medical director? That is a big one. I get real spicy on medical directors when it comes to physicians and how much you end up giving him or her to oversee your practice. There is a role, of course, for the medical physician, for a medical director, but it is not 50% of your freaking profit. It is not even 25%. It is, you certainly need them, but they need you to make the money too. So this is a two-way, equal opportunity street. You have to have this class, this skill, you have to be a nurse, you have to do all these things, very similar to having the physician who've done their things, and really all they're doing is signing off charts and making sure you're compliant retroactively. What that means is you're making those decisions autonomously ahead of time based on collaboration with the physician. You have your policies, your procedures, you know why the person is good to be treated, but their role is retroactive. And to me, that makes a big difference in their liability. It's not to me, it's a fact. The liability of the physician, etc. They're counting on you to do your job. And if you didn't do your job appropriately, unless you're in Texas or a couple other weird states, the physician's not liable because you decided to stab him in the eye with a needle. Like, that's not her fault. All the things that they set up for you to follow, just like in the hospital, you didn't do it, you're not liable. They're not liable for that. So that for that reason, I'm very big on what our mission really was to ensure, not just for related to physicians, but that nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, everybody, even physicians, you're getting what you essentially deserve out of this, and not giving away all of your profit. In a med spa situation, I get a little spicy about that because going into a med spa position is almost, it's not against what we set up, but it is. And it's not a bad thing. It was more just allowing the nurses and nurse practitioners or whoever and physicians to go and start their own business and own and operate it, and keep all of that money instead of going and making $40 an hour and sure, I'll give you 10% for what you do. It's like, it's a struggle when you can do it all by yourself and you keep it all. So I want to play that field easy here because A, we're on Patreon, B, we have a physician, we have med spa positions, and here we got it all today. A lot of times I've got 10 mobile injectors in here, and so it's real easy to be like, yeah, y'all are all making the right choice. But that's not really how I feel. I think there's stability. We obviously have employees, and I make this very clear to everybody. We have 15 employees, and we have med spa managers running all of our med spas. So there's stability in having a position that you can count on, right? It's hours, it's salary, it's wages. So this entrepreneurial spirit and role is not for everybody, and I think that's super important. So if you're listening to this, do you have that in you? Do you have that hustle, or are you much more comfortable showing up, doing your job, kind of being told what to do, but having autonomy? We're nurses, we're medical providers, and then going home. If that's more of you and you're like, gosh, the thought of this being on my mind a lot for the next forever is a struggle for me. It's not something I do well with. I would take a beat, take a pause, and decide, is this the route you want to go, or would you want to look more for a med spa position? One of the things that we really focused on when we started this was that med spa positions were very difficult to find because any established med spa wants 2 years experience as an injector or whatever the case is. We do not believe you need 2 years experience as an injector to go out and be very successful with Botox and fillers. Don't go be a freaking cowboy in the Wild Wild West and start putting cheek filler in on day one. And you got to know your anatomy. You got to put the time and effort into it. But you can absolutely leave this class, go do a great freaking set of lips and a really solid Botox and learn and be perfectly fine. And you will satisfy 95% of people on the earth. If Kim Kardashian walks in, you're probably not the right injector for her right now. That's okay. Like, be okay with that. Just like if you're a med-surg nurse, you wouldn't go into the ICU and be like, I can take care of y'all. And if you would, we'd all be like, yeah, honey, you're terrifying. We wouldn't do that. So this is the same situation. Know your limit, know your boundary. But when you leave here, if you do what Adrienne tells you to do, and you do what these people tell you to do, you're gonna be safe. And if you follow your normal safety, you're gonna be safe and you're gonna be fine. We are lucky to say it's an if, not a when. We've never had a vascular occlusion. We've never had even a compression occlusion, maybe one or two. And we've probably done, I mean, there's 100 of injectors out there under us. Never had a dropped eyelid, none of that stuff. So all those nightmares you see, and I'm encouraging everybody to get a good, solid training, find a good accredited training, which is where you guys are, and listen to what they say. And if you'll just not cut corners, you'll be perfectly fine. It's that simple, and it really is easy. And no, don't have 7 patients on a med-surg floor with 45 things to do, and we got to cut a corner just so freaking Mr. Smith gets his gosh darn medicine. That's not what you're going into. You are in control of what you're about to do. So take a beat and be safe. Are you registered as a medical spa? If you're coming up under Smiley, we're the medical spa, and you don't have to do that. But if you're renting a room or you're not doing that, you need to register as a med spa. It's no big deal. I think it's $100 on the Tennessee website. Secretary of State is where you register for all this stuff. You in Knox County, that's where they'll know that you're supposed to pay them tax. So just be aware of that. When people wonder about taxes, which I'll talk about, your county clerk is the great place for your city and county taxes. And guess how many people are there every day? 0. We associate them with the DMV, and we're like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. I'm never going. That's not what they are. That's where you're going to get your business license and some of these things. And it's literally walk in, fill out the application, and they'll hand you your license, and you walk out. I mean, that's it. It's that simple. People imagine this to be this big deal. I got to go to the county clerk. No, they're just hanging out, waiting on someone to come help them. It's no big deal. So visit your county clerk. Tell them what you're doing. Make an appointment. I'm starting my own business. I need help. I'm going to be in medical aesthetics. Cool. They're not going to like call the board and be like, hey, she's starting her medical. They just want to help you start your business. They actually do want to help us be successful because it's good for the economy in Tennessee. So do register as a med spa. And it's annual, and I think it's like a $100 fee or something. Technically, your medical director is supposed to do that registration. So be aware of that, but the form tells you the rules. So whoever your medical director is going to be, that person is supposed to actually physically sign it and turn it in. Now, he signs it, who turns it in? I mean, let's follow the rules. Okay, do you have your charting system? We use Aesthetic Record, big fan, don't get money for saying that, we're not KOLs or anything like that. We've built our entire company on the back of Aesthetic Record. They're malleable, they have a development team, they're fairly small, so that's a good thing to me. They have a chat that's open a lot of the time. They don't have a phone number, that's one of the big negatives for me, and as a business owner, that's a negative. If I can't pick up the phone and call you, it can be really frustrating when things are not working. The good news is, and I say this again not arrogantly, we've fixed a lot of their problems. So as we've grown and scaled, we have worked with their development team to make it better for the mobile injector and for the med spa. I'm like, just little things that I'm like, this doesn't work. And they will fix things. So we're just big fans. We think they're great. They also, just of note, they put on a conference called Aesthetic Next every year. We went this year, and we're on faculty, and it was a great conference. I would recommend it. Reasonably priced, good content. It was pretty good. It's in Dallas every year. How are you going to market yourself? We're going to talk about marketing here in a minute. I'll kind of section that off. Money, keeping your books and money. And for Patreon, we're going to split this up into however long I've been talking. And we're probably going to split it here in just a second and before we go into money and marketing. Malpractice. Malpractice is not required in the state of Tennessee for anybody, as it turns out, for medical aesthetics. Indiana, it's required for a medical director, by example. So there's different rules in different places. you want malpractice. It's cheap. It's affordable for a nurse practitioner. Or for a nurse, it's probably around $600 a year. You can pay it up front or you can pay it monthly. For a nurse practitioner, you're looking more like $1,000 to $1,800, depending on what you're doing, I think. So somewhere around in there. And physicians, of course, depending on, we've gotten one, I think in Tennessee for around $2,000. Now you can also, if you're in your own family practice, like add it on, like I don't know if they really care, but if it's going to be within that, you can add it right underneath your policy. You talk to them, or you can get a separate one. But it is a consideration. For physicians, again, your liability is super low, but it's just one of those things like, why not? But it is not required. Malpractice is not the same thing as like an LLC and liability. So malpractice is obviously covering your practice under your medical license. It's not associated with money in any way, shape, or form. If you're a nurse, you have to be negligent to the point of harm for a malpractice suit to not cover you. I'm going to trust that no one in here is going to be negligent to the point of harm. That's kind of the point. Of course, we all know of a recent story in Nashville where somebody was, in fact, negligent to the point of harm. So, this is aesthetics. This is not the same thing as being in medicine. So chill, basically. Everyone gets real twisted. Oh, I'm sticking a needle in someone's face. Oh, it's Botox. Oh, it's dermal filler. We use hyaluronic acid-based fillers. We talked about Allergan. I'll talk about that a little bit in a second, why we're Allergan loyal. Outside of the obvious clinical reasons, there's business reasons as well. They're reversible fillers. Botox is going to wear off. I don't care where you put Botox, as long as you don't stuff it in someone's windpipe, it's going to go away. So by the time they even circle back around, does she drop my eyelid? Oh my God, by the time we even get in front of a judge or something, it's, what eyelid? I'm super confused. Looks fine to me. Well, that's because it wore off. So it's all reversible. So as long as you're staying safe and doing, again, what she tells you, your liability is super low. Now, if you're an RN in this state, you cannot walk into a room with a patient, their home, wherever you're going to do, see them, decide that they are a candidate for Botox, decide what Botox they need, treat them, assess them post, and leave without anybody else seeing them. That is not within the scope of a nurse. You're going to probably do that and be pushed into that in a lot of scenarios. It's not within your scope of practice. We could never go into a patient's room who hasn't been seen by anybody else and decide we're going to give them these 4 drugs. It makes perfect sense. It's why you need things like a good faith exam. You need somebody to, if you're mobile, you need somebody to, that's within their scope, has to see the client's medical history associated with Botox or associated with aesthetics and decide that, yes, they're an okay candidate. By example, do they have a history of myasthenia gravis or Guillain-Barré? We wouldn't treat that person. There's Bell's palsy freezing half their face. Let's not put Botox there. It makes perfect sense. But you still can't decide that. Even though you know that's true, you can't decide that. PAs can decide that. Nurse practitioners can decide that. Physicians can decide that. It's not within our scope in the state of Tennessee for a nurse. So you need a good faith exam. That means you need another layer between you and your medical director. Could a medical director do it for you? Sure. Are they going to? Odds are no, unless it's like your dad or mom or something, because they're not, you need that before you inject them. So for you to be out there willy-nilly and mobile and they need to be sitting on go to do your good faith exam is very difficult. So that is a huge piece of compliance that is so not done in anywhere, a lot of places. So just be aware of that. You can't do that. There is no state where anybody who's not a nurse, an LPN or above, can inject Botox. I say that. Texas, there's a couple. Tennessee's not one of them. So I don't care what anybody says. Oh, I've been a medical esthetician for 10 years and I've been doing Botox. Cool, it's illegal. There's a two-way street when it comes to Botox and prescription medicine. A physician is allowed to delegate to anybody, but that is what the law says. But then there's a two-way street. You, as a esthetician, are not allowed to accept or do the delegation if it's not within your scope. But the physician is also not allowed to delegate to a janitor. I mean, would you do that? So there's rules that are a two-way street there that have limitations. Microneedling is a good example. Cosmetic microneedling is not the same as medical microneedling. Cosmetic microneedling ends at 0.25. Depth. Almost all medical microneedling is going to go to 1.5. Estheticians are not even supposed to be microneedling. What is 0.25? A derma roller, essentially. That's, millimeters. So there's a lot of rules here. Y'all don't have to worry about that because you're all nurses and PAs and all the things. So, but as you start learning, and if you continue to learn about compliance and what you're actually doing in your business, especially if you're not, if you come on with us, people get real complacent because we take care of it for them. But I just think there's so much value in learning it yourself and understanding the why behind it so then you don't push back. Same reason people push back on the Joint Commission. I'm like, if you only knew the stories, it's like, don't stick your baby's head in a pot while it's boiling. Well, really? Well, somebody did that, so now we have to put it on a sticker. Like, it's really that bad. And it's the same with everything in medicine. So learn the rules and why they are the way they are, and it really helps you get on board with some of that stuff. But I highly recommend malpractice. C, M, and F, and now are two good ones. NSO has gotten too big for their britches. We're ruining, I really think we're ruining it for everybody. And I mean that sincerely. Now they're trying to not cover mobile, people who are mobile, even though in Tennessee it's completely legal. The law in Tennessee states you need a clean space, a designated clean space. We use a dental bib. Clean dental bib. I don't recommend taking these out of the pack because, you know, people get a little twisted about that. That's real detailed. But a clean dental bib that you open up, I put right here, back of my car, you know, wherever, McDonald's table. I mean, it's a clean space, and I put my stuff on that. And you can be clean, especially with lips and stuff. But I mean, you can do Botox really anywhere. That is what the law states, and it is legal. So, yeah. But NSO just doesn't seem to like it. I don't know why they're getting so twisted. Probably because there's nurses coming on board a lot. CMMF, and then now. Private malpractice, you can go search if you have private insurance somewhere. It's typically a lot more expensive than some of these national companies. Also, can't tell you enough. Go online. Do not call. It is fantastical how you go online and get a quote for $600, then you have a question, like adding on an additionally insured, like adding on your medical director is additionally insured. It's free of charge, but you can't do that online. So you call before you buy it, and all of a sudden the quote's $2,000 instead of $600, and you're like, what the hell, I just did this online. Go online, get your malpractice that way. It's cosmetic. Make sure you have cosmetic covered. It should say that pretty clearly. Some places like Now doesn't cover PRP, by example. I'm like, okay, so what? Are you doing PRP right now? You're just getting started. That's fine. Like, find a good one to get you started, and then you can always get something else covered. Also, PRP is super safe. I'm like, what are you gonna do with PRP? That's gonna, are you gonna stab somebody in the eye? I mean, like, it doesn't, like, some of these things, like, let's think through, would we ever have a lawsuit against us or malpractice before we're just like, oh, I need everything covered, because we freak out because of things that have happened where, you know, whatever the stories and everybody told you on social media about whatever story, that's all. The internet is terrible. Like, use your common sense. Is someone going to sue you? And does it make sense? Like PRP, what could go wrong? And I mean that sincerely. And you don't have the answer today, but you will. And you'll be like, I literally can't imagine it. Well, we can insurance ourselves to death, right? That's a theory in business. Like, sure, we can have insurance for everything. So just be smart about your malpractice. We talked about city, county, and state taxes. And then the last one, are you going to offer any other products? That was one mistake me and Mary made, is that we waited too long, mainly because we were keeping it simple, because I was working at HCA Corporate and didn't have time to deal with this. And she asked me if I wanted to do Botox, and I said no. And then was like, fine. But offering other products, starting that now, I just think is, you can be really comprehensive as like a mobile med spa. You guys are probably already gonna have a skincare line and all this stuff. I didn't want to deal with all that because I thought it was gonna be too much. I thought there was gonna be, whether it was inventory or whatever the case is. So two things. One, Allergan has the skincare line and basically everything you could ever imagine, chemical peels and all kinds of stuff. They have the education to then allow you to go learn chemical peels. It's essentially a video on how to do it. Don't be a cowboy, because once you have an Allergan account, you can order whatever you want. They're not controlling the other side of that, so be smart. But they have a lot of stuff, Skin Medica, all that kind of stuff. And then we chose, and everyone hold your breath, an MLM. Oh my gosh. And in this world, we've all been like, MLM, oh my God. But in reality, as a business principle, it's freaking brilliant. If you're gonna be mobile or start out small, they'll do your website. They'll carry your inventory. They'll handle customer problems. They'll handle customer returns. They have clinical research. They have a clinical research team. They have clinical studies. And you're paying what? $100 a month to get something that you can probably consume or use. Like, take Rodana Fields by example. That's not what we use, but I used to love their, whatever the hell the main skincare one was. It was expensive, like $150 a month. I loved it though. That paid for my whatever that would have paid for whatever I would have done to sell it. That's their stick, right? They're like, if you just use the product, you're paying your monthly fee. So this is an expensible. We use Isogenics because they have a vegan skincare line. They have our collagen. Get a collagen. We've made a fortune off collagen because everyone needs to take a good collagen. But they have all that. Well, we consume the collagen anyways. I use all kinds of their stuff. So it also is at a business expense. But look at all that you're getting. You become a full-fledged offering of. They have NAD pills and vitamins and all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in doing that type of stuff and not just doing Botox, find something like that and make it simple on yourself so you don't have to carry around inventory. Again, if you're in a med spa, whatever they're doing in there, you have a brick and mortar. Okay, money.